There's a war on consciousness in our society, and if we as adults are not allowed to make sovereign decisions about what to experience with our own consciousness while doing no harm to others, including the decision to use responsibly ancient and sacred visionary plants, then we cannot claim to be free in any way, and it's useless for our society to go around the world imposing our form of democracy on others while we nourish this rot at the heart of society and we do not allow individual freedom over consciousness. It may even be that we're denying ourselves the next vital step in our own evolution by allowing this state of affairs to continue.
Yeah, man.
Amen, brother.
The war on consciousness is real. What do you think?
Absolutely. What he said is absolutely true. We want things to continue in an old ass, outdated, oppressive ass way, and it is not helping humans evolve. It only helps people stay on top, and the people that stay on top, they're not evolving either. That's the thing. They think they're evolving and they're not.
Not at all. Not at all, man. It's nothing new. It's been going on for a very long time, especially in this country, man. And like for those that aren't familiar what we mean by the war on consciousness, and welcome YouTube family. We're back again this weekend. We're talking about the war on consciousness, and this refers to the societal, scientific, and mainly an ideological, resistance against exploring like non-ordinary, you could say, states of awareness, like alternative models of reality, like idealism, panpsychism, and the deeper nature of consciousness. The struggle seems to be like manifest in the suppression of, say, like psychedelics, mysticism, different perspectives, often dismissed as pseudoscience or, just irrational, despite all the growing evidence supporting their transformative sort of potentials, Mainstream institutions are really driven by rigid paradigms of materialism, of philosophy and neuroscience and physicalism, which often, reject subjective experiences that challenge the dominance of mechanistic explanations. But this stuff is so old, And additionally, I'd like to add that like media, education, cultural conditioning, they all reinforce a really limited perspective of self and reality and discourage, individuals for even questioning their cognitive frameworks. However, like I was saying, science, like quantum physics, neuroscience, philosophy, they can converge on the idea that consciousness may be more fundamental than matter. And so the war on consciousness appears to be sort of shifting these days with more openness to exploring its profound implications, like we talked about, before on the show. David Chalmers, Stuart Hameroff, all the different non-materialistic models. You know what I'm saying? Go right ahead.
But the question people need to ask themselves, why did they switch to propaganda? Why did they switch to using tools that ultimately target the collective consciousness? Because before that happened, they targeted your environment, and by putting you in an environment where you lose all hope and you can't imagine anything outside of it, that's how your consciousness was influenced to think in sort of a state of a lack mentality.
Hmm.
So it just goes to show that when that didn't work anymore, because people are resilient and somehow find a way to overcome their physical inadequacies, then that's when that big shift happened somewhere, I guess, around the 20th century, when they started switching over to what we call propaganda. So if the question is, if consciousness isn't fundamental, then why is it your consciousness that they target the most?
Hmm. Hmm. Very good point. What do you
Well,
think, Alex?
the one argue that there has always been an element of people in positions of power and authority seeking to
Mm.
control the minds of the masses, the subjects. Um, but really
Uh-oh.
the
You're sort of
advent
roboting though,
of
man.
technology.
Yeah, there's a connection
Um,
issue.
Close all your different stuff you got going on your phone.
Hold on, let me see what we got. Mm,
You sound normal now.
okay, yeah, I probably just
There
had
we
too much
go.
shit open. So yeah, what I was saying is that one could argue that there has always been an element of individuals in positions of authority and power seeking to control the minds of the masses, the minds of the subjects. But really, the advent of technology for mass media kind of changed the game and it enabled new forms of brainwashing, the mind control, if you will.
Hmm.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it used to be, focused on your environment and your physical material environment, which in turn influenced your consciousness as well. But at the same time, people became resilient and they were able to overcome those things. But see, when you manipulate the mind and focus on purely targeting the consciousness, you can make the subject believe that they are free while you're feeding them a narrative. You see what I'm saying?
You
Mm.
know what comes to mind to me with that is
Hmm.
a lot of messaging, like, and I don't mean to be, all of this stuff is of course going to be touchy, and you're going to piss somebody off when you say what anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. But when, like in the media, in our government laws, in the narrative, the cultural narratives, um, and this is mainly with the far left, right now. It used to be with the far right too, but it's also with the far left, is this whole victimization messaging, like saying that women, people of color, minorities are victims, and we need to feel sorry for people, because they're black and they don't carry IDs. They don't know where the voting place is. They don't know. They probably don't even understand the internet. So you have to just not, you have to understand that and make, certain, um, rules to let them, have a fair shake or whatever. And really, this is insulting to a lot of black people, because they feel like, hey, I've got a phone. I know how to use the internet. I know how to find the polling station. And yet we've
Yeah,
got all these laws
it's
and
like
stuff.
it's like you're undermining their intelligence or acting like they're just too stupid, and that's not very flattering. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's just one aspect. It carries over to so many things, to where, we have to look at black people as though they're victims, and their culture is violent and all of this stuff. And ebonics, the way they talk, is that's has to be accepted because it's pure black language. and not understanding that the history of language and all of this culture goes back like to redneck culture, like the
Right.
slavery days. I
British
was married
British
to an
people
African
stuff.
family. Yeah, I was married to African family, and I understand that they don't have these same cultural um, situations and language and
Right.
things like
It
their
was a
mentality
sub
is totally different.
it was a subculture that came out of Britain, and those people were ran out of town in Britain, and they came over here with that subculture ass bullshit. It's just
Right.
that unfortunately a lot of black people held on to that, and you still see it to a certain extent in the black community, but it's not original to black people.
Right. And as society sort of shifted, you know, as they say, you had the Black Renaissance in the early 20th century, and black people seemed to be very family oriented, strong families, strong, hardworking people, valued education. They came up really quick out of slavery into that sort of paradigm. And then around the 50s and 60s, all of a sudden the messaging changed. We started having projects that we put
Which
black people in.
shows exactly what I was saying. People are resilient and they overcome those physical challenges. And that's why there's a decline from nuclear families, black people being about their education and doing productive things and working together. The establishment didn't like that, so they started targeting the consciousness of black people and fucking started taking over black movement, black television, black music, and changed the messaging. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes, look at the music these days. It's so super violent, especially with the hip hop music or what they call black music. Why is it so violent? Why do record companies, promote this? And then why do other people in the culture, even in the community itself, look up to, having sex with all sorts of strange people, you know, looking at women like they're just objects, the violence, the shooting, the killing, it's all
And
sort
it's
of a big,
and it's passed off as
pride.
black culture when it absolutely isn't.
It is
Yeah, that's
not.
just the mainstream stuff that is promoted, and it's kind of a psyop.
Yes, it's a
Pretty
war on
much.
consciousness. It's a
It's
war on
really
people's minds.
That's literally what it is. And then it's passed off as black culture, and that becomes the narrative. And this is how you get everybody to feel a certain way about a certain race. It's all bullshit. It's all made up bullshit.
hmm hmm And that's just the immediate effect. And, a lot of that stems from sort of the philosophical views about the mind that, the mind is just material. The mind is not anything separate than materiality. And so, being that's the case, they have laws about, exploring consciousness from a different perspective. Scientific communities look down on that kind of stuff. And it's just now starting to shift out into exploring further and actually looking at fundamental consciousness and how it's fundamental. But we're actually talking about it being fundamental from a societal level, which is really immediate. And you can kind of see this with, the political conversation in this country. Um, the way that people frame the left, the way that people frame the right, and then how everyone is so tribalistic, and they get into their teams and they exercise their cognitive dissonance. They can't see the hypocrisy of their own party because they're too busy pointing the finger at the other party, And all of this is being driven by the politicians, the media, the news,
Hmm.
and all of this stuff is just warring on your consciousness. It's trying to, direct your thinking in a certain kind of way in order to
And
promote the power.
it's keeping you in a semi-conscious state, like very unaware. You know what I mean? It's like dumbing down the psyche or dumbing down your consciousness, and you're no longer thinking for yourself, but you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally dumbing down society, and that's why we're living in an idiocracy today.
I
Yes.
mean, the left wing and the right wing are both part of the same bird, and the establishment controls the whole bird. Like any
Right.
part of the bird seeks to, perpetuate the interests of the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Amen. And now you got the right wingers running around playing victims and talking about white genocide is going on. You know, it's somebody always has to play the victim.
Yes, there's got to be good guys, bad guys in the narratives, and they want you to feed into the narratives and pick a side, and each side has a vested interest in pushing that agenda on you. And they don't want you to think outside the box. They don't want you to question things. They don't want critical thinking. Our education system sucks. It'll never change, really. It's just the same old, thing. They're always having to solve this same problem.
It's
Let's
what
give
this country
kids need a head
thrives
start.
on.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
No Child Left Behind was like the 80s and 90s, and then came Give the Kids a Head Start. It's like they're always coming up with these different, solutions for the same problem. It's because they're not really trying to solve the problem at all.
Mute your mic, Alex.
Hey, how's it
Let's see
going?
if I can mute it.
Scott, can you mute his mic?
There, I did. Uh-oh.
Mute your mic.
It's muted.
Damn.
Hold on. There we go. Had to mute your mic. Okay. Maybe the dog stopped barking. There we go. All right. So what were we saying? Go ahead and finish your thought.
I don't remember.
I think the dogs are agreeing with you.
Damn. Why they gotta make all this ruckus?
But
Okay.
it's a problem that really, I think it affects every aspect of society. Science, religion, even in the conscious community, everybody's trying to create their own agenda and then push that out in order to change your mind and change your thinking. And like what we do here at the discussion, because someone may say, well, what are you guys trying to do? You trying to promote your ideas and stuff like that. We just put them out there and let people decide what they want, on any kind of topic, on any kind of subject whatsoever. But what I'm talking about is how the news media blatantly tries to drive you into a certain thing. And it's even getting worse, like with the algorithm on social media and on the internet. It's really catering to what people like and then trying to always spoon feed you into stuff that's out there, And I guess, what do you think the solution would be for warring
Well,
that, so to speak?
the solution, God dang it, I ain't all the way right today. The solution is that people need to start dismantling these false narratives and push back against these false narratives. For example, you got Elon Musk running around brainwashing our country into believing that there's a white genocide happening in South Africa. None of these motherfuckers in this country have any idea what they're talking about when they're going along with this type of shit. And they're not even interested, about hearing from the people it's supposed to be about. So people in Africa and people over here need to start pushing back against the false narratives. And that's with any kind of false narrative. I'm talking about the transgender agenda, all of it. It's all false. It's all a bunch of bullshit. And that's the only way you're going to fucking make any kind of difference is you got to push back against the false narratives. Don't just accept it. because it makes you feel good, or because you feel, oh yes, I'm on the right side of history, I'm a hero. It's just appealing to your ego. That's all it's doing.
Well, maybe before you call it a false narrative, just call it a narrative and then explore it for yourself and then decide for yourself whether it's false or not. But don't limit your information to one side, is what my
Yeah, but
suggestion would be.
I'm also saying it from a standpoint of the person that's, or the people, the race, whatever, the individual that's being smeared. Don't sit there and just fucking let people paint a narrative about you.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah,
Exactly,
I
exactly.
believe that we have to, exercise our critical thinking faculties. Whatever, a group of individuals is trying to tell us, we have to, before just accepting it outright, we have to do our own evaluation and say, is this plausible? What is the supporting evidence? What is the evidence that might contradict it? And then,
Yeah,
draw our own conclusions.
I
Yeah,
agree.
and sometimes it's really hard to do. Like, remember when the Iraq War was going down, and President Bush was saying, "Oh, we've got evidence," and Colin Powell was
Hmm.
out there, and they were showing all these videos of the milk plant that was supposed to be hiding nuclear mass, weapons of mass destruction, and everybody just got fooled, you know. And later on, the investigation showed they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. So that whole entire war, that whole entire thing, was just a huge manipulation campaign to manipulate the American people to believe in stuff like that, in order to go to war for whatever the reason really was. Some people say so Halliburton could run off with all the money, or
Hmm.
President Bush was seeking revenge on Saddam Hussein for something, you know, all of these different things we never really know. But one thing we know is that they did actually lie about the whole thing. And so this kind of proves you can't trust authority right out the gate. They're
Right.
suspect.
Yeah.
All of them are suspect. And and let's face it, man, we're kind of limited on what we can really know behind closed doors. We're only seeing it from our, where we sit, which is just like for me, just an everyday guy going to work every day, trying to pay his bills and listens to the news every once in a while in the car or whatever. So my understanding is going to be very limited and only painted by what the news is presenting me at any time.
But there are ways you can get genuine information. You just have to want to do the work. That's
Hmm.
just my opinion. You can choose to sit there and just listen to what the fucking TV tells you. Or you can do your own research. You can meet people from different cultures. You can travel. I mean, there's many ways that you can research genuine information.
Yeah. What do you think, Alex?
Hmm. Well, I
I
think
mean,
that
most people sit on their asses.
Hmm.
I think that there are good, like, general rules to follow in terms of, what sources or what type of information can be trusted, and what sources or type of information should be met with immediate skepticism. And one of those lessons learned, I would say, just from occasionally practicing critical thinking in regards to the information that is being pushed at us, is that, if something is coming from the intelligence community, that should be met with immediate skepticism and should not be trusted outright. If it's coming from the military industrial complex, if it's coming from the uh, um, pharmaceuticals industry, a lot of those things should be met with immediate skepticism.
Well, even with our, media, like, which is our, like Fox News, for example,
The
they paid
legacy
out.
media.
Yeah, the legacy media. Fox News paid out $787.5 million in like the largest ever defamation settlement because of lying, telling lies about the 2020 election as part of the settlement. And
Hmm.
so, you know, that proves right there you can't trust them. And they even came out in the court and said, look, yeah, we lie because it's part of what we do. It's entertainment. But other
And
people lie too. And then they talk, and then
hmm
CNN, all these other
hmm
outlets. And you got to understand they're funded by corporations, big corporations invest in them.
hmm the
And so,
intelligence community, USAID.
mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so it's no, so my whole thing is I really don't try to listen to the news that often, and I really don't get involved in politics too much because it just seems to me to be kind of a hopeless situation. That's the way it strikes me. It seems like
Yeah,
it's too
unfortunately.
tribal. It's just all tribal. It's all, one-sided, and no one really knows really the entire story. So whatever we're talking about is going to be talking out of our neck, so to speak.
Well,
Unless you can
that's
do your
why
best, like Sophia was saying, do your best to kind of look at the other side, look at the proof, try to go to the evidence if you can, and try to see the bigger picture.
And if
hmm
you
Because a lot,
don't know, if you don't know about it or don't know enough about it, shut the fuck up about it. That's my
right,
thing. A lot of people like to run their fucking mouth because they seen a couple of memes. And I'm like, bitch, you didn't research a goddamn thing, so shut the fuck up.
for real though. I mean, because that's what and that's what the media and these people want you to do. They want you to carry the bone. They want you. That's why these memes are created. They want you to push. It's like trolling. It's like Elon Musk when he did the whole salute thing. You had one side saying, "Oh, that wasn't a Nazi salute. That was just a mistake. He's autistic or retarded or something. He didn't know any better." Like, no,
He
that's
is
not it.
retarded though.
But it's like, no, it looked like a Nazi salute to me. Now, whether he's really a Nazi, like part of the Nazi party, I don't think so. I don't even know whether the man's really, a sympathizer. I think if anything, we can at least say he was trolling. He
Yeah,
was
I
trolling.
think that, trying to make those kinds of claims and or investigate those kind of claims is pretty fruitless. That's just mostly a waste of time and energy. There's a lot more like pressing, valid issues that we could be looking into other than whether or not he meant something, like meant to do a Nazi salute. Like that's
Oh,
ridiculous.
he meant to do that. I'm sorry. Like you could just see how he did it, but I don't give a shit. I don't like him because he's an asshole.
Yeah, a like a corporatist, almost like an imperialist.
Yeah, why does one person need that much fucking money? If that's not greed, I don't know what it is. Like, what are you gonna do? I mean, and then we allow somebody with that much money to be appointed. What is he appointed as?
The head of the newly created Department of Government Efficiency.
Yes, and then he was always way more left leaning until he wanted to fucking get ahead, and push the agenda for his own companies and projects and stuff. He's just a businessman.
Yeah, of course. And none of that would surprise me at all. And like Christopher Castro mentioned something that's really, I think, kind of fundamental here. It says the natural desire for war or peace, consciousness disturbed by thought. Amen. Because we get caught up in the ruminating and the drama in our thought process, and we get so identified by our thoughts, and our thoughts are always fleeting and permanent. finite. And so when we really identify it, we're really just opening ourselves up for a big trap, instead of really going deeper and seeing who we are also as a human being. There's another aspect to us that's a lot more transcendent than that. And that's what we always like to promote too, because that's kind of like a protection against getting too caught up in the media narratives and the war on consciousness, because that's what they count on. They count on you being caught up in your thoughts and your ideas and your ego, and it just caters to all that stuff. And that's why we live in this world we do. That's my thought on that.
It's true.
Yeah, I believe that at least in the United States, but I'm sure it's very similar in a lot of the developed world, that the way civilized society or civilization is structured, so that the common people are not meant to have so much time and attention and resources to be able to affect some kind of meaningful change to establish systems that keep us kind of locked in these same patterns.
Yeah, the power structure, the hierarchy.
Hmm.
And that's effective when they can keep certain people mentally on the bottom, because you don't want to really promote the idea that anybody can be powerful. They may, it just doesn't seem to serve their interests. you know and but within each of us, we can have our own power. Now, it doesn't mean we have power over others, but we can have power over the way we see reality, the way we see ourselves. And that perception, I think, is very important. It's like somebody could go through the day upset, bitter, angry about so many things maybe they see on the news, or things they think about for whatever it is. And so when they're going through their day, they see everybody with a scowl on their face. They see the clouds are gray. Their whole reality is just really, hopeless. And then you've got another
I
guy who
think
goes through the same reality, can go to the same place, and they see happy people. They see sunny sky. They see all the great things, because they don't have the same thought process going that this other person does. So it obviously, your thoughts and emotions, produce your reality for you subjectively.
Well, I also think that one of the main problems is the illusion of separatism or separateness. If
Yes.
people would understand an idealistic view for what it is, that we're basically all interconnected and it's kind of like a domino effect, then people wouldn't be so stupid, because they would see that everything kind of depends on each other. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to keep bringing up the Africa situation, but this is where we get a lot of our resources, a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
luxuries that we enjoy, we wouldn't have if it wasn't for Africa. But yet Africans are not really getting the respect they deserve, fair deals that they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, I mean, just think about it. If you have a plant and you stop watering it, it's not going to produce. It's going to break down. And that's with anything. If you don't invest in stuff, you're not going to get what you need to get from it. So it's a very self-destructive process. And these imperialists think they're fucking smart.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What do you think, Alex?
Well, I mean, there are reasons that I, identify, at least philosophically, as an anarchist. I'm fairly anti-establishment, and that's not to be a fucking ungrateful, entitled asshole, that's just because I see some inherent flaws in pretty much any type of hierarchical system of power and authority.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we were talking about elections earlier, and having different sides, and to a large degree, I think that the notion that there are sides is in some ways like a lower tier of the hierarchy, because on the higher tiers of hierarchical power structures, there's seems to not be as much conflict. Like the conflict is less frequent, and when there is conflict, it's pretty heavy, but it might not last very long. Like somebody is vying for power in a region, and they put they freaking put their chips on the table, and they make their moves, but these people, they're not freaking competing directly against their competitors. They're using their resources and their pawns. They're using us, the common people, to play their stupid games. And sometimes for us, the only way for us to win is if we don't play.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And one of my favorite comedians is George Carlin, because he used to talk about this topic all the time. I just wanted to, because everything you're saying right there, Alex, kind of reminds me of that. And I wanted to kind of like play some part of it. I'm just falling into it kind of arbitrarily, but hopefully I'll get some of the good points here.
Look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news.
Hey, did you get an S Corporation Tax Secrets and Benefits book yet? If you haven't, I urge you to.
News and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And
yep, and now they're coming after your Social Security, and they're coming after all your other shit because they want to knock down that federal budget, right?
now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hardworking people. White collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hardworking people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Man. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm actually,
And it's
I'm
funny
actually
how
honored.
Yeah.
it's funny how a
Oh.
lot of people think though that they can actually use the government to enforce their will, you know, and think the government actually gives a fuck. They'll do it and play along with you for a little while just to appeal to you to get your vote, and then they're gonna get rid of your motherfucking ass.
That's right. That's right. And they're counting, like you said, one of the big things there, they're counting on you to be willfully ignorant. And that's exactly what you see on both sides of any fucking argument out here. Everybody's just,
Yep.
they just dig their heels in. The more you try to explain your view or, you know, see the other side, at least question your side, they just dig their heels in because people are emotionally committed to their bias. That's just human nature. That's just how it is. And it affects all of us. It affects me too. And so I have to be careful. And I try to always use that principle of unattachment in my life to say, look, I am not identified with these ideas, with these thoughts, with these views. That doesn't define who I am. And it would be a sad thing if it did. So, you know, you want to kind of disengage to a certain point. You know, it's okay to engage it, think about it, talk about it, but because it does affect you. But you got to understand the news media is only going to let us see what it wants us to see. The same with the politicians. The whole system is sort of like that. You know, they got their own agenda. I used to do a lot of sales back in the day.
Not sort of. It is. It is like that.
Exactly, of course. And when I went to these sales seminars, they used to teach us about the art of manipulation, about how to attack people's emotional centers in order to get them to go on the yes train or the no train or whatever you want to get them, guide their thinking into different things. And that's how you eventually close the sale. And it's a well-known practice, and I'm sure politicians are schooled at it. You know, these people are salesmen. These are business people. These are, you know, politicians, man. They know.
And
how
they
to
do
this
it.
stuff.
They do it by making you, especially with making you feel like a victim, like the Africa thing. Oh, there's a white genocide. And so now white people in America think they have some kind of stake in this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this ain't about no white person in America, let alone white people in general. This is about people who have an imperialist mindset who want to continue to oppress others. That's just like the whole Jew thing and the Zionists. It's nobody's saying that all Jews are bad people. We're talking about Zionists. We're talking about people with a fucked up mindset who have a superiority complex. So if you feel spoken to, then are you that type of person? Because then it's not about your ass.
Right. Right.
So why
Well,
get
some
involved
people,
in why?
because people identify with their race. People identify with being white, and they say, "Well, I'm white," and these people are talking about the evil that white people are doing in this thing over here. So they're kind of talking about me. I have to defend my people. You know, I have to
Which
defend
is
my
so
people.
dumb.
Yeah, instead of looking at whether it's really right or wrong. But, you know, people are so divided up over things that were put in their mind long ago, you know, like race,
Race
religion.
politics.
Yeah, all of that, man. All of
And
that.
they're
And if
just
you really
fucking,
read,
they're just fucking race baiters.
yes, and that would bring us to the race baiters, the people that the you know that all kinds of race baiters, white race baiters, black race baiters. All of these people come together for their own personal agenda. They're not so concerned about the community. They don't really want to solve the problem because then they'd be, taking themselves out of a job. They've
Yeah,
made
Yeah.
a
and
very illustrious career off of that. So why
Plus,
would
you
they?
would no,
mhm.
plus you no longer be special. You know, everybody has to feel special.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. There is that.
And I hate to bring it back to this the point that I had last segment, but that's why I believe the way I believe about pride, because the way I see it, an individual taking pride in something that they have not accomplished is simply like opening the gate to having being manipulated from outside forces. You take too much pride in your ethnicity or your nationality, then that leaves an opening for different interests to bait one into buying into this narrative of a race war or something like that. And I think it's a mistake for us to try and evaluate situations going on in other countries uh, with
Uh-oh. You're roboting again. Just started cutting out, Alex.
um, testing,
There you go. You're
testing.
better.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. So yeah, what I was saying is that I think it's a mistake for us to evaluate the situations that are going on in other countries and regions through the lens of our cultural history in this country, in this region, because they're simply at a different point in their cultural history, like the situation that's going on in South Africa, the situation that's going on in Israel. They're still working out their issues with like apartheid, with segregation, with racial or religious conflict.
I wanted to play this video from George Carlin again about because you just brought that up
Okay,
again.
can I say
But
something though, real
please,
quick to Alex?
Sophia, I was about to say, go right ahead before I play the video because I want to hear what you got to say about that
I
first.
agree with Christopher Castro. There is such a thing as racial narcissism, but I think sometimes we got to look at context. You know, sometimes saying I'm proud because I'm proud of my blackness or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean my race. It means something that I identify that is culturally black. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and I was about to say sometimes these cultural identities are forced on you. Like whether
No,
you
I
could be a
mean, no, I
you
mean like me
well
identifying with dreadlocks or reggae music or the way that I cook my meals. That's part of my black culture. You
right,
know,
but what I'm
wherever.
saying is but what I was getting at was even bigger than that. Suppose you're a black person like say a Thomas Sowell who doesn't really he himself says he doesn't identify with black culture, right? But
Right,
then but then society makes all these laws and stuff against black people. Well, guess what? It's going to affect him too, whether he believes he's part of black culture or not. You know what I'm saying? And
right,
then so where does that leave him? So he's got to fight for his rights as a black person, not because necessarily that he's racially narcissistic, but because the society has put a label on him and then are using discrimination against him regardless. Not saying that anything like that is happening, but I think that's kind of comparative to racial narcissism that he was mentioning, I think.
Right, but I agree with Joel. Just being proud of your culture and who you are and where you came from. I don't think that's racial narcissism, but it's a problem when you are proud of your skin color and think it's superior. Like that is racial narcissism. But to just say, "Hey, I'm black and I'm proud," that just means I'm proud of who I am. It's not really about my race.
It's not Black Lives Matter, it's all lives matter. You know, that makes people mad. You know, it's like because the sentiment of the Black Lives Matter is that there's a problem against the against black people for being black. So they're trying to say, look, black lives actually matter. But then a lot of white people will come out and say, no, it isn't Black Lives Matter, it's all lives matter. So stop being racist. So it's sort of dismissive about what the real message is behind the slogan, you know.
Well, that's like saying if you fight for biological women's rights because transgenders want to be in their space, and then
Right.
transgenders say the same exact shit. It's not women's
Right.
rights matter, it's all rights matter. But yeah,
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
dumb shit.
But I wanted to share this video with George Carlin just to see what his thoughts were, because they kind of coincided with what Alex was saying. So I'll go ahead and play a little bit of this too.
Kids have to be warned that there's bullshit coming down the road. That's the biggest thing you can do for a kid. Tell them what life in this country is about. It's about a whole lot of bullshit that needs to be detected and avoided. That's the best thing you can do. No one told me. No one told me a thing like that. I was never warned about any of this. I had to find all of it out for myself. And there are still, as with you probably, a lot of things that you're expected to believe and accept in America that I personally have a problem with, and I question a lot of these things. Give you an example. I saw a slogan on the guy's car. It said, "Proud to be an American." And I thought, well, what the fuck does that mean? Proud to be an American. You see, I've never understood national pride. I've never understood ethnic pride, because I'm Irish, and all four of my grandparents were born in Ireland, so I'm fully Irish. And when I was a kid, I would go to the St. Patrick's Day parade. And I noticed that they sold a button that said, "Proud to be Irish." And I could never understand that, because I knew that on Columbus Day, they sold a different button that said, "Proud to be Italian." Then came Black Pride and Puerto Rican pride. And I could never understand ethnic or national pride, because to me, pride should be reserved for something you achieve or attain on your own, not something that happens by accident of birth. Being Irish... Being Irish isn't a skill. It's a fucking genetic accident. You wouldn't say, "I'm proud to be 5'11". I'm proud to have a predisposition for colon cancer. So why the fuck would you be proud to be Irish or proud to be Italian or American or anything? If you're happy with it, that's fine. Do that. Put that on your car. Happy to be an American. Be happy. Don't be proud. Too much pride as it is. Pride goeth before a fall. Never forget Proverbs, okay? Now, here's another slogan. Here's another slogan you run into all the time. God bless America. Once again, respectfully, I say to myself, what the fuck does that mean? God bless America?
Respectfully.
Is that a request? Is that a demand? Is that a suggestion? Politicians say it at the end of every speech, as if it were some sort of verbal tic that they can't get rid of. God bless you and God bless America. God bless you and God bless America. I guess they figure if they leave it out, someone's going to think they're bad Americans. Let me tell you a little secret about God, folks. God does not give a flying fuck about America, okay? He doesn't care. He never cared about this country. He never has. He never will. He doesn't care about this country any more than he cares about Mongolia, Transylvania, Pittsburgh, the Suez Canal, or the North Pole. He simply doesn't care, okay? He doesn't care. Listen. Hey, there are 200 countries in the world now. Do these people honestly think that God is sitting around picking out his favorites? Why would he do that? Why would God have a favorite country? And why would it be America out of all the countries? Because we have the most money? Because he likes our national anthem? Maybe it's because he heard we have 18 delicious flavors of classic rice-a-roni. It's delusional thinking. It's delusional thinking, and Americans are not alone with these sort of delusions. Military cemeteries around the world are packed with brainwashed, dead soldiers who were convinced God was on their side. America prays for God to destroy our enemies. Our enemies pray for God to destroy us. Somebody's going to be disappointed. Somebody's wasting their fucking time. Could it be everyone?
Yep.
George Carlin's
Gotta,
funny, man.
gotta love him.
He's right though. He's fucking right.
Yep. Yep. That's the thing. It comes back right back to that. We're all taught these things, everybody in society, and we all take it for granted when we have conversations and discussions about stuff that this is just supposed to be assumed true. And it's like,
But I wasn't raised here, so to me this shit ain't normal.
yeah.
I don't remember Germans around me running around saying, I'm proud to be German. I'm proud to be German. Nobody said no dumb shit like that, like at all. Like, you would have been looked at like you fucking retarded. Like, what's your problem, motherfucker?
Right.
Are you okay, sir?
Yeah, you all right? I lived in Germany for quite a while, man, and I used to love Germans because they weren't like Americans. They didn't think the same way about a lot of shit. And
Now there were some that were a little bit ignorant. They'd see me and say, how did you learn German?
I grew up here.
Well, probably because I was born here and I'm German. Oh, so you don't speak African?
Right, you're not an African? What town were you born in again? Let the audience know.
Heilbronn. It's like near Stuttgart.
I used to live near Stuttgart. So I lived in Böblingen.
That's why we have so much in common.
Yeah. But I also lived in Mannheim and Heidelberg and Wiesloken, like a lot of different places, man, in Germany. I was traveling all around, man.
Yeah.
It was great because there was always an American Army base nearby. So if I wanted to get a job, I could just get a job. As long as you have an ID card, you just fill out an application and you're in there. You can keep your ID card that way. Because, you have to have an ID card and it expires after 3 months. But if you're working, it's always going to be, always going to be active.
Right.
So that was the real good thing. But, yeah, and it goes back to how in America, that's why we have different cultures in every country, because every country, all the people, there's like a collective consciousness in all of the different, societies and, you could say even communities. There's a consciousness. If you live in the hood, there's a certain consciousness there. If you live in a rich neighborhood or if you live in a different Jewish community, there's a different conscious collective there too.
Yeah, they call it like the spirit of something, the spirit of this town, what it signals what these people are about.
Yeah, they have a distinct one where Sophia and I are, and there's some not so pleasant aspects of that, like the history of slavery and oppression is still alive and well today. Unfortunately, it's simply just changed form.
Yeah,
it's very covert.
And it was kind of funny. Remember when I was on Lou's channel earlier this week, and we were kind of talking about slavery in America, and compared to slavery in ancient Israel, because we were talking to a Christian about the slavery problem or whatever. And a lot of atheists will always say, well, the fact that slavery is in the Old Testament may show that the people back then had no real good moral compass, or they were immoral people,
Alex, I heard that.
Yeah, look at Alex blowing up over there. I'm gonna mute. Nobody want to hear that.
I got the bubble guts going on over there.
For real. And the thing about that was, there's this fallacy called presentism, where we really judge cultures by the standards of the present culture, right? And so when we look at slavery in the Bible, it's easy for us to say, oh, that was evil. But actually, that's just the norm back then. That was the normal thing. And not just in Israel, but in all sort of surrounding. You had the Code of Hammurabi that outlined slave laws and things like that. But, of course, the difference being that when you criticize it, you're criticizing God, who is supposed to be unchanging and forward thinking, like he's omniscient. He knows the future and everything like that. So he should have known slavery was wrong,
But I
if it
think
really
that's
is.
I think that's just one of the ways that the people in that region in that time period, they used religion to manipulate the people in like a lower tier of the hierarchy to conform and to not rebel against the system.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But consciousness changed, like with a different country, like in America, slavery was normal too, until fairly recently. And then it changed all of a sudden. Then the pendulum swung the other way. And so, when it comes to, what's ethical, what's right and wrong, that stuff is subjective. It's very
The thing that,
subjective and relative
but
to the time and period,
the thing that people got to understand though, slavery was just a smoke screen. This whole thing about being black is to be subhuman and all that kind of shit. That was just a narrative, a lie that was spun in order to gain economical power. And of course, you're not going to get everybody to go along with that because that's obviously wrong. So you have to create a false narrative to get everybody on the same train, Well, you see, it's because these people aren't actually human. And so we're doing them a favor. We're actually being merciful on them by allowing them to be slaves for us.
Right.
Yes, dehumanizing.
And everyone goes through thoughts about these things, whether they want to admit it or not. People start questioning what we all take for granted as right and wrong. And I hate to do this. I just love to share videos. I don't know what it is. It kind of helps the conversation in a way, in my opinion. But I wanted to share because every time we talk about these subjects, my brain starts thinking about videos. So anyways, there's this video where we're talking about, and he goes into slavery as well and things like that. And it really goes into kind of what we're talking about with the overall consciousness. But this is Louis C.K. I don't know if you're familiar with Louis C.K. Really one of my favorite comedians. But he's talking about, of course, but maybe. Right? And so he'll explain kind of what that is. It's kind of funny. And it goes along with what we're talking about here.
There's a competition in their brain of good thoughts and bad thoughts. Hopefully the good thoughts win. For me, I always have both. I have like the thing I believe, the good thing. That's the thing I believe. And then there's this thing. And I don't believe it, but it is there. It's always this thing and then this thing. It's become a category in my brain that I call of course, but maybe. I'll give you an example. Okay, like of course, children who have nut allergies need to be protected. Of course. We have to segregate their food from nuts, have their medication available at all times, and anybody who manufactures or serves food needs to be aware of deadly nut allergies. Of course. But maybe if touching a nut kills you, you're supposed to die. Of course not. Of course not.
You can apply that to so much shit, but let this roll because it gets funnier. and funnier.
Of course not. Jesus. I have a nephew who has that. I'd be devastated if something happened to him. But maybe, maybe, if we all just do this for 1 year, we're done with nut allergies forever. No, of course not. Of course, if you're fighting for your country and you get shot or hurt, it's a terrible tragedy. Of course. Of course. But maybe if you pick up a gun and go to another country and you get shot, it's not that weird. Maybe if you get shot by the dude you were just shooting at, it's a tiny bit your fault.
A tiny bit.
Yeah, tiny bit. This one gets really bad. This one's really funny though.
So yeah, just maybe socialism is a natural result of oppression.
Right.
Just maybe, just a little bit.
maybe, just a little bit.
Of course, slavery is the worst thing that ever happened.
How is he gonna get out of this one?
Listen, you all clapped for dead kids with the nuts. For kids dying from nuts, you applauded. So you're in this with me now. Do you understand? You don't get to cherry pick. Those kids did nothing to you. Of course, slavery is the worst thing that ever happened. Of course it is. Every time it's happened. Black people in America, Jews in Egypt, every time a whole race of people has been enslaved, it's a terrible, horrible thing. Of course. But maybe every incredible human achievement in history was done with slaves. Every single thing where you go, how did they build those pyramids? They just threw human death and suffering at them until they were finished. How did we traverse the nation with a railroad so quickly? We just threw Chinese people in caves and blew them up and didn't give a shit what happened to them. There's no end to what you can do when you don't give a fuck about particular people. You can do anything. That's where human greatness comes from, is that we're shitty people, that we fuck others over. Even today, how do we have this amazing microtechnology? Because the factory where they're making these, they jump off the fucking roof because it's a nightmare in there. You really have a choice. You can have candles and horses and be a little kinder to each other, or let someone suffer immeasurably far away just so you can leave a mean comment on YouTube while you're taking a shit.
Oh yeah, that really
That's
puts things
funny,
in
huh?
perspective.
Yeah.
He's funny as shit.
There's always two ways to look at anything.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, depending on your culture, there really isn't. There's only one way to look at it. And that's what makes it funny, is because if he questions things like that, you know, and he's just, of course, hyperbolic. A lot of that is just over the top. But yeah, it just kind of reminded me what we were just talking about. But hell yeah, man. So any other thoughts about the war on consciousness? Like anything else you wanted to kind of bring up? Because I'm kind of running out of gas on that one.
I mean, we've pretty much been covering the things that we wanted to cover. That we were talking about ahead of time, like psychedelics. There was, like, you know, different cultural, like, conflicts going on, you know, in this country, other countries and stuff.
Have you ever seen those scare videos from the 50s and 60s and 70s?
Oh yeah, the scare propaganda.
Yeah. That's an example of war on consciousness, you know.
The reefer madness.
Reefer madness. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, there are positive things. Like there were things against like narcotics, like cocaine, heroin, you know, things
Hmm.
like that. And I would agree that that stuff is kind of like poison. I can't really see the upside to that. But when it comes to psychedelics, like
Mm.
ayahuasca, DMT, peyote,
Yeah,
even
a lot of
marijuana,
a
marijuana
lot of
has some
them.
psychoactive chemicals.
A lot of psychedelics are either, you know, completely safe or have, you know, side effects that are so negligible that, you know, there's not any logical reason to make them illegal.
Right, right.
And of course there's some like psychedelics and stuff that are actually toxic, so you should be careful with them. You can overdose and potentially die from some of those, and I think that includes like certain mushrooms, not psilocybin mushrooms, those are safe, but
Hmm.
freaking what the Amanita muscaria, because they, I believe those can actually produce chemicals that are like harmful for your organs and stuff. But um, if you really get into the mycology of it, you can kind of navigate that and find a way to be able to use it without really harming yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Joel Davis asks, "What's the war on consciousness?" I missed the explanation. Do a
I'll
recap,
read that
please.
to him. I'll read it to you, Joel. A war on consciousness is the systematic effort to control, limit, or manipulate human awareness, perception, and free thought. Instead of controlling people through physical force, modern power structures use propaganda, media, education, and technology to shape how people perceive reality. In other words, your reality is being spoon fed to people, and what you think is reality is actually not reality. That's what we're saying.
At
Hmm.
least socially, culturally, you know, the way the civilization is structured with the hierarchy and stuff.
Right.
Hey, Miss Amanda jumped in with a comment finally. She's been a little ghost watcher,
Hey,
man. I actually work at the same place she does, so she learned about the show. I let her
Awesome,
know. So,
awesome.
I had a
yeah,
tiny interaction with her on your wall earlier about me
yeah.
being mad at the experience.
Right, right. And Christopher says, I'm trying to abandon the sure, intense psychological habits of fear and thought in favor of bodily freedom.
Yeah, that's definitely what we advocate here is you know, individual sovereignty, exercising those critical thinking faculties, and you know, just reaching a point of confidence in oneself to be able to, you know, navigate all of that, and you know, better oneself, and you know, try and make some kind of decisions on whether or not to go along with certain things business as usual, or you know, take a, you know, more difficult path of,
Hmm.
you know, the road less traveled.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that I kind of mentioned too earlier, and I think in a discussion I was having with somebody about models, different models of consciousness, is a lot of people, regardless of what model you may want to subscribe to, they like to take a lot of stuff off the table. And then when they take that stuff off the table, they like to make the criticism, well, we can't really see the evidence for it, or we can't really see the sense of it. Well, yeah, because you control the table. You know, you're taking off the table. You know, of course you're not going to be able to explain it. You took it off the table.
Mm.
So you have to kind of like go where the viewpoint is or where the phenomenon is. You got to go there. It's like you wouldn't go to the North Pole to study tropical birds, you know. You want to go where the phenomenon is. So if somebody's like talking about, say, psi phenomenon or ghost or paranormal or some other thing like that, telepathy. Like I was watching these telepathy tapes the other day, and it's like people are like, well, we have to kind of take telepathy off the table. So now we have to figure out what's going on with that, and we can't really figure it out. It's because you've taken the explanations off the table. You know, you're not willing to go into it. Like, you know, one of the criticisms of the telepathy thing was like, well, one of the claims by one of the pro telepathy people were saying the problem is whenever you do objective science, whenever you put it in the lab, you sort of ruin the experiment, you know, because you know, when you ruin you ruin the experiment because you're sort of trying to come at it from an objective, very logical, scientific methodology. And a lot of the pro telepathy people will say, well, you have to not pressure them. You have to go on their own terms, which is more of a different methodology. But if you don't respect that methodology, then you're going to take it off the table and you're not going to really explore it because you've already sort of your bias has already concluded that that's not going to work. And so that's why a lot of these conversations break down, because people just aren't open. And why aren't they? I think it's because of society. It's because of things we've been educated into. And, you know, we have to sort of, at least I suggest we all be a little more open-minded to anything, to everything, to whatever your model of the world is. You know what I mean?
Because the story of our history, the book is not closed on the story of our history, and we are still a part of the evolutionary process. Evolution is not done with us by a long shot, you know, and it's, you know, just that we have elected to kind of proceed on the path of a cultural evolution and technological evolution to where our actual biological evolution is not, you know, taking center stage.
Yeah. And before I introduce our next guest, Joel Davis says if it can't be demonstrated, then it can't be demonstrated. It doesn't matter how good the excuse is. That is very, very, very true. And the problem with the telepathy tapes is they are demonstrating the claim, you know, and they have a process, and it's worth looking at. If you're interested in that stuff, I'd suggest taking a look at it. But how are you doing, James Apperson? How's it going, man?
Going all right. You know, I jumped in here randomly. I just left a different live stream,
Oh.
and I thought I was jumping in here with complete strangers, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I recognize the host. I know you.
I know you too.
Hey. So it's great to be here. I only caught pieces of it because I'd been multitasking between tasks, but I love the topic, and I love the groove you guys got going on here.
Yeah. We
Oh,
got a
well,
little
thank
vibe. This is Sophia, my
Hi.
co-host, as well as Alex.
Hey there, Sophia and
Yo.
Alex. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts, James, so far about the war on consciousness?
You know, I spend enough time warring against my own consciousness, so I'm not sure if I'm winning or losing, but still in the fight. And I appreciate what you were saying. You know, evolution's not done with us. We're all a work in progress, and we're just doing the best we can.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
true.
Absolutely. And that's the one constant in reality, is that things always change. Nothing is ever really stagnant. Everything is changing. And so the same is to be said with you know, societies and cultures. What are normative today will not be the same maybe 100, 200 years from now at all, you know.
Shoot,
And
and Sophia and I were just talking about this the other day. Socially, that's well, at least the way I see it is, yes, change is constant, but with certain things, it still kind of falls into that pattern of the more things change, the more things stay the same.
hmm yeah, there's some constants, especially that of evolution, ever evolving. And sometimes I wonder if a lot of people make the argument that, well, like in America, we're de-evolving, we're moving backwards. Like, when you take women's rights away,
Hmm.
when you take, all these different, policy changes, under, say, a conservative or a liberal Democrat party,
Yeah,
each
and in
side is
some
going to
senses,
disagree, and it's always going to be like they're always going to disagree. But at the end of the day, it's so weird. Like, say, the gay marriage thing, and we were talking about this when we were talking about the transgender issue before.
mm-hmm.
Is just a few years ago, gay marriage was shunned by the Democrats and the Republicans. I remember Obama saying he was against gay marriage. Now, no one
Really?
really gives a shit. Yeah, no one really cares.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's
I
like,
don't. That to me should have been the finish line for the so-called LGBT whatever community, as gay marriage recognized federally. Okay, yeah, pack it in, guys. We won, right? But then, of course, they had to freaking, or not, I say they, certain individuals, certain members of the group, they had to say no. We want more. Never satisfied. Let's push for, we want the government to fund our, gender transition. We want to push this in education and stuff. Push for youth to be able to decide their gender. It got past the point of what should have been a reasonable conclusion to just complete unreasonable madness.
mm. What do you
In a
think,
very
James?
in a general way, I agree with that. The specifics, I think, would need to be addressed individually.
Sure.
But the trans women in sports, for example,
Hmm.
it's a complicated issue. I myself kind of go back and forth about what I think about it, but even if we just grant the idea that definitely the left liberal side of this is 100% right, it's too fast and too soon. It's too much to push for. It was polarizing within the context, and so I just kind of felt like, slow down, guys. Let's be strategic about how you go about this, right? Let's, pushing so hard is just creating further division, and it's not relevant in all sports. For example, sailboating, right? Sailboating
Hmm.
just already has people of different sexes, and if you want to use the term gender, so that's not even an issue there in that sports domain. And then when it comes to where it is an issue, man, there's just so much to weigh, and I still am not sure what I think about it. But in the meantime, if we're allowing it to be a point of division and polarization, and we see that the ultra conservatives are getting a lot of political traction on the issue, you're accidentally giving them traction.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Because
I
that
agree.
was, yeah, and that was kind of like the whole when they did the exit polling and stuff after the election. They were saying that mainly it was a referendum against the left because they were so much into this wokeness or progressive.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the wokeness
Yeah.
label.
Too much radical stuff.
Yeah, they just weren't ready to digest a lot of these ideas, and a lot of these ideas were
Not even digest, like acceptance. I just don't
accepted at
accept a
all.
bunch of that
Well,
crap.
that's what I mean. They couldn't swallow it. It was like they couldn't really get with it, and so they would rather have a Trump in office than, say, Kamala, who was going to be
Oh yeah.
who they feared was going to be promoting some of these ideologies over top of some of the more pressing concerns they had, like the
I just
border,
think they're all
immigration.
horrible, and I don't agree with none of them really, even though all of them might do some good things. But I mean, let's face it, the two-party system never comes up with solutions. It's always
Well,
one
not for the
against the
common
other.
folk. They have
Right.
solutions for, you know, the people who install themselves in the positions of authority.
Yeah, so why are we still voting for it on either
Right.
side?
Right. And I think it was also problematic within the domain of liberal thinking is that, and Sam Harris was right about this, the left eats its own in a way that the right doesn't. And it's incredibly problematic to have this politically charged ecosystem where that's so internally divided about what's right and what's valuable and what's a good strategy to move forward with. And it reminds me of Stephen Woodford, Rationality Rules, where he ended up having this sudden breakaway from the atheist ecosystem there for a while, because he had a different opinion about the trans sports stuff. And instead of saying, okay, you're looking at this differently, let's have the discussion, they were just immediately so enraged at him for thinking differently than them that they tried to immediately cancel them. And when I say they,
Yeah.
I don't mean everybody within that ecosystem, but there was a large movement to cancel. And I'm like, even if Stephen Woodford's 100% wrong on this issue, he's been your ally on all these other issues and with all these other investments. Why not sit down and talk with the guy? Why not open a dialogue that might take several discussions over many months or a couple of years? Why not just have have the discussion instead of just trying to immediately, you're the enemy, you're canceled.
Yeah,
Right?
shut them down. Exactly.
Yeah.
Joel Davis says, but that was more of the narrative being pushed by the right about the left. The actual rhetoric was focused on different issues. So I would say that Kamala and Biden, I don't remember them bringing up the transgender issue at all. I don't remember them talking about any of these woke agendas at all. They mainly talked about the economy, immigration, or really not much after that. But the
Right.
problem, this is the problem the way I see it though, is that the establishment, which means like the lobbyists and people like that, they threw Bernie Sanders overboard. Bernie Sanders was more of a person not interested in talking about woke ideology at all. And he was more focused on like democratic socialism and he was more of a populist, you know, from a left perspective, from a far left perspective.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, but that's how he came off. So then the establishment was like, well, we don't want that because that's kind of against our interest. You know, lobbyists don't want someone who's talking about getting rid of special interest groups and paying all this money to corporations for this and that sort of advertising and things like that. He was more of coming off like a man for the people, you know, a populist. So the party decided to go with the establishment, and the establishment is the lobbyist groups, you know. And so when they did that, you know, they said, well, instead of pushing anti-establishment stuff, why don't we just focus on woke stuff, like these transgender issues, racial issues, you know, these kind of things. And the thing about that, though, is it sort of failed. It really obviously did. And then the conservatives, in my view, got a lot more social capital in social media, like YouTube with Joe Rogan, all of these different people, and they pretty much didn't, or the people pretty much lost trust in the media because they were so much into this trans ideology stuff that people weren't really ready to swallow. And so the establishment's idea just backfired on them, you know. And the conservatives had much more social capital than the left did at this particular time. They were relying solely on the media, the big media companies and stuff, to carry
The
their
legacy
own
media.
legacy media, and people just really didn't want to hear that. You know what I'm saying? And so while the candidates themselves didn't really push the woke agenda, the media did. And I think that was the referendum that the people voted against.
Well, what I saw was that, you know, even if the Democratic candidates weren't promoting the transgender, you know, prerogatives with their mouths, they were still promoting it with the policy that they were pushing out under Biden. You know, the things that Kamala was supporting, even if she didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, the things that were a part of the platform.
Hmm.
Yeah. In fact, they avoided talking about it directly and strategically,
Mhm.
and I think that might have been a mistake.
Uh, I don't know. Some of those issues and some of those candidates like Bernie Sanders are things that to some people are good on paper, but then like just talk about Bernie Sanders really quickly. Like, you know, he was never meant to win. Bernie Sanders, you know, from what I understand, is pretty much a career loser. You know, he's a career politician who gives mouth service to all of these, you know, issues that you know, pertain to the common folk. You know, make certain people want to support him, but he was never meant to actually succeed. You know, whatever um, good may have come from Bernie Sanders' political career has effectively been crumbs compared to what the people actually have wanted.
And it seems like people are very skeptical about certain concepts and ideas. Like there's been such a long tradition of anti-socialism, anti-communism in this country for a long time. It's sort of like in our, consciousness for at least half of us. And so a lot of people are, um, how is that going to be possible? This UBI, how is that possible? How are we going to afford to give free education, free, a base income to every American of at least $1,000?
I mean,
How are we going to
how are we
afford?
affording to continue all of these like perpetual wars? Like,
Right.
how are we affording all of these things that the majority of the population doesn't really support? You know, the money is there. It's simply a matter of priorities, and especially with the development of technology, automation. You know, oftentimes there's not as much demand for labor as there are available resources. You know, and you know, so sometimes there's like a resource scarcity, but then there's also instances where the scarcity of resources is actually artificial. You know, it's like if left to our own devices, if not bound by the rules of the so-called economy, that scarcity would not exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that I was thinking is that, a lot of people aren't really in a lot of these discussions I notice is that we don't really bring up the fact that we're going through a major technological shift with AI and now
Mm.
super AGI and robots that can do your work for you and drive your trucks and airplanes and everything else. It's like the whole, market economy is subject to really be put on the top of his head, upside down, here in a few years, if not earlier, where jobs aren't really going to be needed and a lot of people are going to be displaced, and it's just going to cause a whole lot of upheaval, I think, in society, unless really we come to a point where how are we going to take care of people that are out of work while we let these robots drive our economy?
I think certain issues the ruling class are simply not interested in fixing, because as long as their needs can be met, they pretty much couldn't care less whether or not the masses will be okay. They all they need is enough workers with enough competency to maintain the systems that perpetuate their power and their positions of luxury.
Yeah. Anything you want to? Anything anyone else wants to say about that?
Well, I mean, it's a thing. I don't know what there is to be done about it, but that's certainly what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, all I would say, other than what I've said previously, is we gotta try and cultivate our capability to be self-sufficient, and with whatever spare time and resources that we have, just try and help each other out. Just
And more unified. We have to be more unified as people instead of falling for every narrative and fighting each other.
Mm-hmm. We just got to try and be responsible and humane. What more can we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's kind of uncertain. We have an uncertain immediate future in front of us, with, like I said, with the AI, and this sort of goes into our money systems and things like that. This is a example of consciousness, right? Because money's value, the market value, is all based on confidence in people's value in things, right? And so now we're talking about moving to Bitcoin and things like that. And, is that really sustainable? People have fears. But then on top of that, now we have AI threatening to take our jobs, what society might look like. So I thought I'd share this video really quick just to kind of take a look at some of these ideas. Check this out.
Seen how new generative AI models like ChatGPT are almost perfectly suited to basic coding. Give them a single prompt and they'll do hours of work within seconds. With a bit of editing by someone who knows what they're doing, it's fit for purpose. Just like the self-checkout machines, it isn't a question of the complete replacement of people. It's just that one skilled coder could use advanced AI to do the work of 5 of 10 people who are new to the field. It means that even if AI can't do 100% of the tasks associated with a job, it raises the bar exponentially as to what the standard is in the industry, which can in turn replace tons of people. A lot of these jobs aren't things people should really be spending their whole lives on anyway though, because nobody really wants to be a cashier or work in data entry when they're growing up. In a 50 or 100 years time, when the dust has settled, the world may actually be thankful that we've escaped from all this menial labor. But until that point, the economy is going to have to undergo some huge changes. And the main question will be, who will be buying anything if nobody's really working anymore? As we may very well be in a world where not everyone is expected or needed to even have a job, simply because there just aren't enough of them to go around. So what are the various predictions for how bad the damage is really going to be? Well, there's lots of different estimates, but even the most conservative still mean that millions of jobs will get replaced. In the short term, it isn't looking good. It's generally agreed that tens of millions of jobs will be lost over the next decade to AI. A lot more will be impacted in some way, which means that some parts of the work will get automated. For customer service jobs, it means employees would only deal with the complicated problems that an AI can't solve. Even though most predictions think it will boost the global economy by trillions of dollars. So how does this make sense? If people are actually going to be replaced, then how will the economy go up so much if no one can buy anything? Well, this is where it gets interesting. As we've seen already with automation, when the job gets easier, there's far more competition. Before GPS was widely used, being a London taxi driver was an incredibly hard job. If you wanted to do it, you needed to memorize a complete street map of the city. GPS and ride-sharing apps tore through this barrier, meaning anyone with a car and a phone could adequately do the job. And the results were clear. London taxi drivers saw their wages fall by 10%. And it seems like AI might do this exact same thing to nearly every job there is, 60% of them in developed countries. The parts that can be automated will be taken over, leaving either less jobs or lower wages for the people who can still cling on. The paperwork that makes up tons of the workload for people like doctors or police officers will disappear, meaning there's less work overall. Only a few industries like teaching or agriculture are going to escape some level of automation, which again brings up the same massive question. How will the economy then continue to function? With so many people either out of work or struggling to make ends meet, it isn't clear how we're going to solve this. Corporations across the board have been taking record profits at the expense of almost everyone else, and so it doesn't seem realistic to imagine that they're suddenly going to share the money they'll make from the AI revolution. It's clear at this point that people are going to need to change the way they work. Physical labor will still be important, but it won't be as common. Basic office work and simple cognitive tasks are going to be far less important. It's what AI does best. Meanwhile, complicated tasks which need a lot of training or a good deal of natural ability will be in much higher demand. We've seen from history that these kinds of shifts lead to stagnant wages. After the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, when millions moved from agriculture to manufacturing, wages stayed at around the same level for 50 years straight. If this happens again, then the economic hardship we see today could continue for another 30 to 40 years before it corrects itself. In fact, this time it might even be worse. It's a simple truth that tons of people just aren't academically smart enough to make the transition. It's a pipe dream to imagine that we're going to train the millions of truck drivers that will lose their jobs to do something else. The jobs they could realistically work instead are disappearing. People without college degrees that lose their jobs can't really easily retrain in another field and often fall through the cracks. In the best of cases, they go on to disability for the rest of their lives. Often they just can't cope with losing their purpose, turning to drink or drugs, or simply just giving up. It's an awful tragedy that's going to be repeated over and over again if we can't find a solution. And this transition will leave tons of people behind, as most of us just don't have the skills or the natural ability to work the highly complicated academic jobs that AI will create. The AI trucks will need people to oversee the operation and make sure it's all running smoothly, even directly taking control of certain trucks if necessary. But it's not something that's going to be easy for anyone to pick up without specific training. The world is just getting too complicated for most people, but this could be one area where people could still find a niche. Instead of directly working as a cashier, shop assistants now
That's something you might want to see.
Yeah, that kind of gets the point across. But yeah, it's kind of a concern, man. What are we gonna do when we have no jobs? How is the economy gonna be? Maybe we should all become transhumanists and upload our consciousness.
Hell no.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the machines are gonna replace humans, huh?
Yeah.
Shit. In some ways, I'm planning to go a bit more primitive if shit really hits the fan and we're left out in the cold, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's either that or you have to really adapt to the new technology and the new, like he was saying, the training. You have to learn how to train to do maybe, like for right now, you have a new field called prompting, AI prompting. So you have people that are prompt engineers, and they, and then programming is going to go away. You're just going to have to know how to prompt an AI to program your code or whatever it is you want, like your websites and things like that. And it's just going to get more complicated as we drastically change faster. It's like, not sure if you know what, this is a law. What is it? I can't even think of the name. Was it Moore's Law? Where, computers get faster, like they double in speed every so often, and now we're at a point where it's
have in size.
Yeah, and half in size, and now it's just gotten to the point where we have quantum computers now. In December, they announced the first really smart, super smart AGI quantum computer that does amazing things. And then so this year they're supposed to be perfecting that, and it's just so much going on, man. Deep fakes are going to be, you're not going to tell the difference between reality and these deep fakes. It's already at that point now. And so it's just open for psyops. It's open for all kinds of manipulation of our minds, on that spectrum.
Well,
That's really it's kind of a scary. I'm always about positivity. How do you like that? That's my positive message today. You're fucked.
Yeah. Well, we just gotta, kind of roll with the punches, and whatever the future's got in store, we've got to try to plan accordingly and make preparations.
Personally, I'm running to the woods and I'm gonna just pitch a tent and fucking catch fish because I just want to be
Yeah.
left alone.
Yeah.
Until
Let's
the
go
robots
feral.
find you. Then
Feral.
they'll send the robots after you. They'll send the drones after you. Like, you're gonna have to join the Borg here. You know, you're gonna have to join the collective. We don't want any chance of any outsider rebels, rising up against the machine,
Whatever.
Man.
We ain't there yet.
Yeah, that's a problem for our kids and grandkids, right?
Damn. Why you have to say it like that?
You're lucky.
Kids.
You get to pass it on to your kids. Congratulations. Yeah, but it's some precarious times, man. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to say. I'm kind of running out of anything else to really add to that conversation at this point. We've been going on.
I'm pretty much tapped out.
Yeah, yeah.
To an extent, we've seen this before, right? Like in the video, kind of pointed that out. There are
Mhm.
transitions in technology, and people have
Yep.
to adapt. I'm excited about it for the most part because
Okay.
these are essential changes. A government doesn't want to make certain changes, but when the changing industrial and technical landscape forces our government to grow, then I'm okay with that. Now, I do feel bad for anybody that's left out in the cold, where they're
Well,
in this situation. But
thank you, James, for that positive note, man. I was trying to come up with something, and you
Right.
came up
It
with
was very
something.
hopeful.
Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you for bringing some light to this. I don't ever like to leave with that kind of negative.
Right. So I appreciate it, and I plan on encouraging everyone who's at the top end of that. Right, they get the technical skills, they get the technical job. It pays way more than the old jobs would have paid. My position is, why don't you guys help stabilize society by hiring people yourselves to be supporting, your efforts? So, for example, if I'm putting in 30, 40 hours a week doing something highly technical that pays very, very well, why don't I go ahead and hire somebody to help me keep the house clean and help me keep my life organized and help me, with all the stuff
Mm.
I don't want to spend time on? Therefore, I'm passing the good favor forward because there's people that can't keep up with that technological shift. And I want to make sure that they're taken care of too. So everybody wins in this situation, right? My life gets easier instead of harder. And
Mhm.
then I pass the fortune forward. And I think that we need to see a
Yes.
lot of that.
That's very
Yeah.
thoughtful.
Good thought, because that even reminded me. There was a video I saw some years ago that was mentioning that, yeah, while we may lose a lot of jobs and a lot of people will be unemployed, these robots and AI will be self-sufficient. So you don't have to pay off, all this sick time leave, all this workman's compensation. You won't have to pay them hourly. You won't have to pay for all these things. And you can do a corporate tax or a robot tax, if you will, that can sort of pay for social benefits for the people that are outside of work, for like their training, to learn new skills that'll adapt to the new market. So you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
lot more money to play with to get that done, and that way you kind of solve the problem at that point.
Yeah.
So
Maybe we're gonna need some major change in terms of like the hierarchy of civilization and also possibly um oh gosh, I can't remember where else I was going with that. The economy,
mhm.
the way the economy works, because I don't know. I'm not entirely optimistic about that. I don't know if the current economic models are going to still be useful moving forward as technology progresses.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of concerns me too is the weaponization of AI and the weaponization of robots and sophisticated machines, intelligent machines. That kind of concerns me because when we think about the economy, and we think about where all the money is going to really trickle in, and then we think about, like, I was watching on C-SPAN, what was it, last year, the the World something forum, the World Peace Forum or whatever, and they were talking about, actually very explicitly talking about depopulation of the earth by 50%, right? And they're saying
That's
this would help.
very.
That's really weird and really crazy, but I'm just thinking, if people have these weaponized robots, these weaponized AI, why should we spend this money to pretty much train these people, or, keep these people, these people that can't work, put them in the matrix or something like that? Why even worry about that? Why not take that money and put it to ourselves and let these people go? Let them, it's kind of a really dark sci-fi kind of thought, but I think about stuff like that because I'm a nice person.
I think we should do a part 2 on this topic where we, kind of explore some more research and like a theory and reconvene.
Heck yeah, man.
I'm
Sure.
thinking too that there's a lot of things that we don't call jobs right now that can become jobs. There's a lot of lonely people, for example, in our society, right? Elderly people, disabled people, remote people, and we could say, you know what? While we're moving some of this money around and making new jobs, let's make this a job sector where people connect with each other and they're there for people who most need human connection. And on top of that, we've got parks and other places that are just full of trash and debris. Let's make it a new job where we have a whole lot more people going out there to clean all these locations and get paid for it because they can't do a truck driver job anymore. I think that there's plenty of opportunities to take what we're treating now as part-time jobs or volunteer work and restructure it in such a way where now these are actual jobs.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of leave it there. I was going to play another video that was a little off color, but I thought maybe
I kind of like how James brought the positivity, because sometimes it's really discouraging to think of the future with the way things are going sometimes, especially right now. So yeah.
Joel Davis says world's oldest profession being a friend, and that is distasteful as this may sound. We're talking about like these companions, these AI companions and these robot companions, where they're actually building these robots that look very human-like. And so you've got all these people that are lonely for husbands or lonely for wives or whatever. They don't want to deal with a real person, so they'd rather go with these robots that look human, but they kind of talk the way they want them. They won't talk shit back to you and stuff.
They can't betray you, right?
Can't betray you, can't all of these things. And, one person even suggested, pedophilia, like child sex dolls. Like where
that's going to be a controversy.
Yeah, but if you think about it, his thought was, well, would you rather the pedophile work his energy off on a doll, or would you rather him screw your kid?
I'm going to defer to science on that.
I don't think that would work, because do you really think somebody who has those kind of urges is going to be satisfied with a doll?
Yeah, people say,
it's only a matter of time.
But we don't try it. We don't try anything on this in our society when it comes to pedophiles. We don't even have a sign out there that says don't screw kids. All we do is we say, you know what? There's always going to be pedophiles. It isn't like the cops come and say, we've caught the last one. No, there's always going to be pedophiles. That's my my magnet says on my refrigerator.
Right. Yeah, there we go.
Refrigerator magnets.
Yeah,
man.
that's my screensaver at work. There'll always be pedophiles.
You
Scott must
better
be
shut
away
the
from his
hell up.
desk.
You better shut the hell up, Scott. All right.
Time to end the show.
All right, time to end the show now.
I'm getting out of here. I'm head out.
Y'all know
Nice meeting you, James.
Same here. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thanks,
Guys.
James, for dropping on by and supporting me, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, you got it, man.
Bye.
All right, folks. Hey, like and subscribe if you like our stuff. I mean, we're going to come up with more topics, of course. So next weekend, we'll be reconvening on Saturday, hopefully this time at 12 o'clock for my stomach act, right? So y'all be good. Appreciate you.